Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I just want to thank Mike for asking Mary Murphy to speak, and to thank Mary Murphy for asking me to speak, and to thank Mike again for allowing me to speak here. It's really an honor and a privilege to speak in an AA meeting, and I just want to thank everyone here for being so kind to me. It's kind of scary when you come to a place you don't really know that many people. I especially want to thank my best friend Andy, my sister Andy, for coming and listening to my talk. I was thinking, poor Andy, you know, every time I talk I ask her, will you come with me? So she's probably heard my talk like every time I've talked, and I just feel bad for her that she has to keep hearing it, but what are best friends for? I'm going to talk a little bit about what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. And what it used to be like is my mom says I was a really good child, and I made my bed, and I ate, and I drank my juice, and I was like a little goody two-shoes, and I went to school, and I got straight A's, and basically I was, my brothers were bad, and I was good. And but little did she know I was bad. I just never got caught. I was a sneak. And so what happened was I kind of, I had two parents, and I had an older sister and an older brother and a younger brother, and I grew up in a middle-class Jewish family, and we moved a lot because my dad changed jobs every year, I think. And people said, well, are you in the military? And I wasn't in the military, but my dad kept changing jobs. So we never lived anywhere longer than a year. Sometimes we would even move to a different town in the same state. Like I think in Michigan, we were there 6 years, but we never stayed in the same city the whole time. So really the only place I was ever had roots or some kind of roots was when I went to college for 4 years. I was in the same state. I went to University of Wisconsin, and now since I've been sober, I'm sober almost 6.5 years, probably 6 years and 3 months, and this is the longest I've ever done anything perfectly, not take a drink a day at a time, and I have a home group. It's the Pacific group, and I really feel like I've gotten roots since I've come to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's really funny. I think to myself, I never really understood what an alcoholic was. I thought I did. I thought an alcoholic was a person that was a bad person. I thought it was a man. I thought he was old. I thought he wore a raincoat and basically was laying in the gutter on a rainy day with a bag, and that he had probably lost his family or his dog or something. And that was really my vision of an alcoholic, and I didn't really understand that alcoholism was a disease. I never knew what alcoholism was. I never thought that I was an alcoholic. I never said to myself, oh, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm going to keep drinking or anything like that. I didn't know anybody in AA. I had never heard of AA. It was not my goal to come to AA. And it's really interesting. Since I've been in AA, I've really learned not only a lot about myself, but I've learned about what's wrong with me, which is that I'm a woman alcoholic and I have alcoholism. But just to qualify, I think I can't remember my first drink. There was always drinking in my house. Both my parents drank. I believe my dad was an alcoholic. He's dead now. But he did try AA, my mom said, quite a few times. I guess this was after I had already graduated college, so I had no idea. But she said that they would go to these these dingy meetings in these dingy little churches in the basement, and the people were dingy, and my dad thought everybody was a loser. So they're alive and he's dead. And the winner's dead, the losers are still living. And don't get me wrong, I really, really love my dad, and sometimes I really miss him, and I was thinking about him today because I have breakfast with my mom every Friday, and we were talking about him, and it was really strange because I asked my mom how my dad died, and she told me he had lung cancer, and from the diagnosis to when he died was about 3 months, and I had gotten sober after my dad died, maybe 4 months after he died, and I said, well, where was I? Because I remember showing up for the last 3 days that he was alive and talking to him and saying goodbye to him and stuff. And she said, well, I'm sure I called you. And I just thought, God, that's so unbelievable. Not only do I not remember, my mother doesn't remember. So, that's kind of like the way my life is. Like, I look back, when I was drinking, I had so much fun, and I would always brag about all my drinking and the bars, and I graduated from high school. I started drinking in junior high school, but I drank mostly on the weekends where I partied, but I was the type of kid, I was afraid of my parents, so I didn't really do anything that bad. I never got suspended from school or anything like that, but I was really manipulative and sneaky, and I'd get other people suspended. I'd get other people to steal things. I get everybody to do the stuff for me. Like, my best friend was a dealer, and so I got a lot of my drugs for free, and I did a lot of drugs, and but I would never sell drugs because, I was too good for that, and just all of these types of things. And when my parents never knew that anything was wrong, although my mom says that my dad always wondered why on Saturday I would sleep till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He kept saying, she's smoking pot. She must be on drugs, My mom was like, no, she's just tired from working so hard all week. And my mom just really didn't have a clue. And so basically, when I graduated from high school, I just wanted to get the hell out of my house. My parents fought all the time, and I don't know if my dad hit my mom or not, or what the story was, but my dad got drunk all the time, and he drank stoli, and he had total personality change when he would drink, and I never remember seeing my parents kiss. I remember them talking all the time. That's what I remember. They would sit on the couch, and they would be drinking this pitcher of Bloody Marys, and they would be talking, and the TV would be on, and the radio would be on, and the football game would be on, and they would just be talking and talking and talking. I remember the kids ate dinner at 6, my parents ate dinner at 9, 10, 10:30. I remember my mom going, I'm so hungry. And my dad saying, just one more drink, Rosalie. And so, and then all the kids would be upstairs, and then they'd be screaming and everything, and you never knew what they were screaming about, but it never occurred to me that it had anything to do with drinking. In my mind, it was like, I'm never getting married. That's what I thought. And so, and then when I was before I went away to college, I could drink at home. My parents taught me how to drink, and I would drink with my parents, and it was fine. And yeah, I could get drunk in front of my parents, but I was well behaved when I was drunk. I never threw up in front of them or, took my clothes off or anything. I mean, it was really funny. Their philosophy was I could go out, I had a curfew, and I'd always like, why do I have a curfew? None of my friends have a curfew. I just want to go out and come home, when the party's done or whatever. And my father would say, yeah, well, I could do whatever I want before 1 o'clock. I mean, I don't understand what this 1 o'clock thing is. And he goes, yeah, well, you can do whatever you want before 1, but you can't do it again. I thought, what does that mean, I mean, I was a virgin. I wasn't like some little hooker, walking the streets, although I think I lost my virginity when I was 16, but I didn't tell my parents, and because I thought that they would be really mad at me, and so he gave me the big talk, before I went to college, the good girls, the bad girls, I'm thinking, God, this is so embarrassing, and I just remember this one time I was going to the beach, and my mom had bought me a bikini, and I came down to say goodbye, and my dad goes, you're not going out of this house looking like that, and he said, you got 2 Band-Aids on, you're not leaving this house. My mom was like, that's the style, and so it was always kind of like that. Like if my dad and I had a really good relationship actually until I graduated from college, and I think it's because my dad was really hard on all of us. He had very high expectations. He was an overachiever, himself, and my sister was retarded. My oldest sister was retarded, and so he'd always say, your older sister can't, she doesn't have the potential. You all have the potential, and you should work harder and try harder. And I always felt like I never lived up to my parents' expectations ever. And not so much my mom, but certainly my dad. And my dad was really smart, and my brother's a genius, and I'm like, I have to study 50 hours to get a B. And, I just really resented that. My brother has this photographic memory, and we used to go to like a restaurant and like look down the menu, and he'd like look at the menu, and then he'd shut it, and he'd go, okay, ask me, how much ham and cheese is. Ask me anything on the menu, what it is. And it would just make me so crazy. And I would ask him, and he would remember, and it would just drive me insane. And then I just thought, I'm a dummy, I'm a moron, I can stare at the menu, and the waitress comes over, I forget what I want to order. And so basically, I went to college. I got as far away from my family as I could possibly get. I thought they were all crazy, and I went to college, University of Wisconsin. I don't remember college. I know I graduated. I have a degree from there. I do not know what I did for 4 years except squander my parents' hard-earned money, and I did a lot of quaaludes. I drank a lot. I played a lot of pool. I'm a very good pool player. I majored in European social history. I have no idea what that means. It's funny, but it's not funny, because what for me, like, I was a classic cheater, I had to get the grades because that was the image was really important, and so I had to get the grades, but I never got the inside. Like, I read all the Cliff Notes. I didn't read Hemingway or Twain or anything. I just read all the Cliff Notes, so like I know the stories, but I never got the pleasure, the beauty, the poetry, the lyricism of the writing. So, I just totally cheated myself, but I never realized while I was doing that that's what I was doing. I thought I was just pulling a fast one on them. So I never realized, at the end of, everyone always says, oh, a lot of people I know in sobriety, they want to go back to school, and they're like, oh, but, you went to college? I'm like, I don't remember college, For me, college was that transition between moving out of my parents' house and getting on my own. It really had very little to do with education. And, trying to find a boyfriend, and I found a couple boyfriends, and all I did was, smoke cigarettes, sleep and have sex. That's what I did. And then I moved to Manhattan, where my alcoholism really took off. And I moved in with my roommate from college, and I lived there, I think, for 9 years. I can't remember now. But I swear to God, Manhattan, the city that never sleeps, the perfect city for me. And, I just stayed up all night long. And my dad would always say, don't burn the candle at both ends, screw that. And I would work and I would party, and I would work and I would party. And I think I got an hour's sleep, in 3 years. And then I had mononucleosis, and then I had to have my tonsils out or something. Like, I would just go and go and go and go like those Energizer battery people, and then I'd just collapse. And then my parents would come and, try and help me or whatever, but I still was holding it together. And I think that was what was so hard for me to come into Alcoholics Anonymous, is because I just didn't think I had a problem. I was seeing a shrink. I was, my whole thing is that I was numb, and I kept saying to the shrink, like, for 2 years, I said to the shrink, like, there must be something wrong with me. I'm indifferent to everything. Like, I should care that, that my life isn't going anywhere, that I don't have a career, and that I've squandered my parents' money, and I'm living in this apartment, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I don't really care. I mean, I'm complaining about it, but I don't really feel like I care about anything. What is wrong with me? It's not normal. And I really thought that there was something wrong with me. And, I'd get fired from jobs, and my dad, it's so funny to think about my dad. He always said to me that, you don't drink in the morning, and you don't drink during work. So I figured I didn't drink at my lunch. I didn't drink in the morning. I'd go at happy hour in New York is where you eat your dinner at the buffet tables, those chicken wings and the little sandwiches. And that was what I lived on for, 5 years. That was my dinner. And usually I'd eat about 3 o'clock in the morning after I drank about, 50 drinks. I was the type of person that would go into the bar and I would like sit and I'd order my first drink myself, and then I'd chat up somebody, and then I'd tell them some BS sob story about how I had no money. Then they'd buy me a drink, then their friend would buy me a drink, and this and this and this, and then they feel really sorry for me and give me some money. So I'd like leave the bar with more money than I had, and then go to the next bar and, you know, spend more money. And I was like one of the few people I knew that went to Europe and came back with more money than when I went there. And it was so bizarre. And plus I had like another suitcase of stuff. And I just, you know, I was a fighter. Like I loved getting into arguments, especially with men at the bars. That was my favorite thing to do. And the more I argued with a guy, the more I liked him. And you know, I'd have to say that, you know, in my own mind, I did not have a bad reputation. But in all honesty, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this because it's being taped, but hope my husband never hears this tape. I like slept with, you know, half the city of Manhattan, and I didn't care if they were married or not married, and alcohol was really a social lubricant for me. I mean, I had to have alcohol, and I think, you know, sex for me when I got sober was really awful because I had never been sober in my life when I had sex, and it really was a bummer. And I thought, no wonder I drank. This is horrifying. And I was like so uptight and so self-conscious, and I just, oh my God, I couldn't relax. And I just thought, what is wrong with me, you know? What happened to that like party girl nymphomaniac? And you know, I just became like a nun or something. I was just like, you know, turn the light off, don't look at me, you know. It was horrible. But when I drank, I didn't care, you know. When I drank, I didn't care. I wasn't an exhibitionist or anything, but you know, I mean, when I got to the guy's house or whatever, and we did more drugs and listened to more music, and then got in bed, I had convinced myself at that point that I loved this person. I was going to marry them, you know, they were going to take care of me, you know. I couldn't remember their name in the morning, but so what, you know. You know, I always laugh because I used to bring these people back to my apartment in New York, and I had these two roommates, and they were get so mad at me, like, what if he's an axe murderer, you know? And I'm just like, oh, please, give me a break. And one time I brought this guy home. I don't know who he was, but I just remember my roommate coming into my room and saying, oh, Kim, your boyfriend's asking me for bus fare, you know. And I was just like, I was mortified, you know. I just thought, oh, my God. And another time, like, I used to always put $5 in my sock because I would drink so much, and sometimes I'd spend a lot of money, sometimes I'd find people to buy me drinks, sometimes I wouldn't, but I always wanted to be able to take a cab home. Like, I just wanted to be able to get the hell out when I felt like getting the hell out, even if it was the next morning from that person's apartment or wherever I was. I just always had to know that I had that extra money. And sometimes I'd spend it on drugs, but then I'd give someone else some sob story and they'd give me some money for cab fare. But I just remember, like, one time we couldn't find this ride home, and I was with my friend Suzette, and she goes, oh, don't worry about it. We were in this after-hours club. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was pouring rain out. I was so drunk. I was so high. I'd, like, drank myself sober, and I did that a lot. Like, I just couldn't stay drunk. Like, I'd get drunk, and then all of a sudden, and I'd overshoot the mark, and my body would be kind of drunk, but then my mind would be sober, and I just want to, like, be drunk. Like, I always, I was saying to a friend of mine the other day that I was a type of person who, I slept with so many people and I did so many crazy things, you know, but I had so much pride. I would never have asked anyone for money, you know, and I wish that I had. I mean, I was the type of drunk that I wanted to be somebody that I wasn't. Like, I wanted to be a hooker. I wanted to be just some outrageous, you know, crazy, but no matter how much I drank, I still had these, I don't know, morals or values or something, like just the smallest amount. I don't know if it was my parents or what it was, or God or what it was, but I just couldn't let go completely. But I really wanted to do that, and I'm sure that had I stayed out there longer, maybe eventually when I hear other people's stories from the podium, I would have been able to let go, and maybe I would have ended up in the Bowery. I don't know. But I was so uptight. I was so controlling. There was no way. I was always like the designated driver, or my mind was always going, we can do this and go here and let's go with these guys. But what was really funny was that one night, my friend goes, oh, don't worry about it. We'll get a ride home. And we got this ride home from these two sanitation truck drivers, I thought I was going to die sitting in this sanitation truck being driven to my apartment building. I thought, this is not what my parents raised me to do. I mean, this is not right, I was totally embarrassed and humiliated. Until we got to my apartment and smoked a joint, and then I didn't care. They scored some coke, and then I didn't care. And so basically my life kind of went on like that, and my life was really repetitive. I knew exactly where I was going to be at 5. I knew, and then, I'd meet my friend. We'd keep just switching these different bars that we would go to, and then stay out all night, come home, or not, shower. Sometimes I'd have the 6:45 gym class that I'd go to, and I'd just be sweating vodka. It was horrible. And then I'd get to work and I'd be so hungover, and I'd eat some soup, and then it started progressively getting to a point where I'd have to drink at lunch, and but I kept holding it together. And eventually what happened was I just became totally miserable with my boyfriend, miserable with my job, called my brother, said, please help me, I just hate living in New York, and I don't know what to do with myself. And so he got me this job interview at ABC, and I came here for the job interview, and it was just this really big fiasco. He totally lied to this woman and said that I was here for this other job interview that didn't really exist, but nonetheless, I was here for this other job interview, and I was probably going to take the other job, but just on a, slight chance that I might be able to meet with her, possibly, when could she see me? And so I went in there to meet with her, and I just had all this stuff in my mind, and I got the job, and it was really weird. And then a couple weeks later, she was like, what was that other job? I just wanted to go, there was no other job. I'm like, oh, and I had to lie about it. And then I met this guy. Here I was working in, for a network, and it was television, and I never have really watched TV. And so I had to watch all these tapes of all these actresses and shows and everything, just because my brother told me, she needs somebody that she can utilize, so watch all this stuff so that you know what she's talking about. And then I fell in love with this guy who didn't even own a TV set. It was perfect. He was a labor organizer, and he didn't drink, he didn't get high, he was handsome, he was really brilliant, I love the really brilliant, depressed types. And so, because I've always felt so inadequate, I figured if I was with a guy that was brilliant, then how stupid could I be? I mean, I could just absorb everything, and, I wouldn't have to read anything or do anything. I could just listen to him and just take on everything that he tells me. And so I was with him for, I don't even know, probably 5 years or something, and the relationship I was hiding my drinking from him. He knew I drank, but I would lie about it, and I would hide my bottles, and I was drinking a lot of vodka, a lot of Baileys, and I would buy other bottles and hide them under the bed and then put them on the refrigerator, because he'd go to make a screwdriver or something, and he'd be like, where's all the vodka? And I'm like, oh, I had some friends over, and he's like, you did not, and it's, yes, I did, and it was horrible, and I really wanted this relationship to work, and he traveled a lot, and so when he went out of town, I was like crazy, and so eventually that relationship dissolved. It didn't work out, and I figured he's gone, I'm just going to drink the way I want, and I lasted, I don't know, another 22 days, and then I came into AA. I woke up on a Saturday morning, and I was suicidal. I mean, I look back on it, and I see that I was suicidal. At the time, I didn't think I was suicidal. I just thought, I was whatever, depressed. But I woke up on a Saturday morning, and I just thought, yeah, it's Saturday. And then I thought, oh my God, it's Saturday. I can't do it. I just cannot get out of this bed. I just can't face another day. I'm a loser. I'm nothing. I'm crap. And, I just can't stand it. And then this little voice in my head said, you're an alcoholic, and you should look up alcoholism in the yellow pages. And I thought that was really weird, and that experience had never happened to me before, but I just did it. And I called up, and I called this Be Sober hotline, and then they turned me on to Alcoholics Anonymous, and this woman, Tina Hamilton, who subsequently is Tina Rubenstein, happened to have answered the phone, and she, talked to me, and she said, do you think you cannot drink today? I'm like, of course I cannot drink today. What do you think, I'm an alcoholic? I mean, I had no idea. like, I don't have to drink. I want to drink. I like drinking. I like partying. And so I said, I don't know what this AA thing is. She goes, I can come to your house. Oh, no, don't come to my house. I mean, I've only, like, had every bum in the world come to my house in the middle of the night when I'm bombed and I don't even know who they are. But God forbid you, a woman, should come to my house. No. And so, I go, no, don't come to my house. I'll meet you somewhere, And so she says, okay, well, we can meet at this meeting. I'm like, well, what do you mean a meeting? She says, an AA meeting. I'm like, well, I don't want to go to an AA meeting, I'm young. I'm a woman. I don't want to go to an AA meeting with a bunch of men sitting in raincoats talking about the gutter. And she's like, oh, no, this meeting's on Melrose. There's a lot of young people there. And you come and I'll introduce you to some people. And I'm like, well, how old are you? And she had 8 years of sobriety. I think she was 26 or something, or 27. I mean, she was young. And I thought, wow, she's really young. I thought, okay, so I met her at that meeting. And that was in January of 1989, and I haven't had to drink since. And, it's really unbelievable. My sobriety has just been unbelievable. And like Chuck C. says, I feel like this is the only good life I've ever had. It's the only good life I've ever known. I mean, sometimes I don't like the way my life is, and sometimes I don't like who I am, but at least I'm alive. At least I'm conscious. At least I know what I don't like, and I don't have to, hang around depressive intellectuals to feel like I have half a brain. And it's progress, not perfection. It's funny. I mean, I'm married now, and I totally love and adore my husband, and he never even went to college. And I thought to myself, when we got engaged, when we first started dating, I thought, he's just a kid. He's 10 years younger than I am. And I thought, oh, he's just a kid. It will just be really fun. I can boss him around, And so, and we had a lot of fun, and we had a great time and everything. And then he started getting really serious, and I just thought, I don't want to get married. I just want to bounce from like relationship to relationship. No relationship's ever worked out for me, so this one's not going to work out either. And, I just wasn't all that serious about it. And he was really kind. Like, there was something about him that was different from all the other men that I had dated. But in my mind, in my thinking, I thought, my father wouldn't approve. You didn't go to college. You didn't go to Harvard. You're not a judge. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're nothing, You're like, what are you? And what was he? He was a clerk in a law firm. He wasn't a law clerk. He was like, he was doing the Beacons boxes or something. I mean, he was like a file clerk, in the garage of this huge law firm. And I just thought, but he was a jock, and my dad really loved sports. And I thought, well, at least they could have talked about like sports, and he probably would have liked that. He probably would have lied and told people that Kenny was like in a AAA baseball team or something. And because Ken is a really good softball player. But it was really funny. I mean, what I had to do when I first came here, and what I heard when I first came here, was that I needed to get a sponsor. And I didn't know what a sponsor was, and I really didn't want one. But I'm the type of person, I'm like an all or nothing person. If I'm going to do something, I just got to do it full force. Otherwise, I just drop out. Like, I can't be on the fringes. I can't be on the outside looking in. I got to be right in the center. And so this woman, Tina, she's like, yeah, you got to get a sponsor, and you got to work the steps. And basically, a sponsor is a person who's just going to teach you about the steps. They're going to teach you about the big book, and they're going to teach you about alcoholism and learn about yourself. And it will really be the first healthy relationship that you'll have in your life. And I was just like, that sounded kind of appealing. And so I got this woman, Molly Barnes, to be my sponsor. I heard her speak, like, I don't know, on my 4th day of sobriety, and I went up to her and I asked her to be my sponsor, and she said okay. And I sat in the car with her for an hour and cried. I have no idea what I told her. And and then I ended up going. She was speaking at a Pacific Group meeting, and I went to the Pacific Group to hear her talk, and I just loved it. I just loved the people there. I loved the energy there. I loved the way that everybody knew each other and nobody raised their hand to participate, and everyone knew each other's names, and I felt really comfortable there. And so I ended up staying in the Pacific group, and Molly moved to New York, and Clancy was her sponsor, and so I was calling Clancy all the time, because in the Pacific group they told me, so I was so new, I just did what anyone told me because I was so desperate, that if your sponsor goes out of town, you need an interim sponsor, because you need somebody that's sober longer than you to see you once a week and look at your face to know if you're lying or not on the phone. So, because you got to call these people, you got to call them every single day, and you can lie to them on the phone, but if they see you, you can't lie to their face. And so I thought, all right, whatever, you know. So then, she had me call Clancy. So I started calling Clancy, and he really intimidated me, but I would call him, and he was really nice to me. So I just, I call him, and then eventually she was bi-coastal, or she went to New York, and so I tried another woman in the Pacific group, Rita B., and I was with her for a couple of months, and it just wasn't working. And then I tried another person, Mary Murphy, the person who is going to be your speaker tonight, and I thought she was completely insane, so that wasn't going to work. And then and then there was someone else, and then I finally said to Clancy, like, will you just be my sponsor? I can't take it. And he says, yeah, you've been through so many women, you're too manipulative, that's your problem, you just outfox everybody, you're not going to outfox me. And I just thought, oh my God, I've really done it now, my life is over. And then I remember I was at home, I was in my bedroom, and I was watching the news, and I saw him on the news. It was so bizarre. And I don't know what he was talking about, but it was at that point that I realized, and I had a little bit over a year's sobriety, that this was real, that what was going on in AA and that sobriety was real, and that this wasn't some sort of joke, it wasn't some sort of game, it wasn't some sort of farce, it wasn't something that was going to go away like a fad, or something that I was just going to dabble in and then move on. I mean, this was a life or death situation. This was a person who was going to appeal to my higher nature and help me to change and mature into a woman, and really, help me to understand what the hell my problem was. And I just started crying, and I realized that, I was really, really happy I was sober. I mean, I totally identified with the guy that took the chip tonight for 6 months. I drank every day, sometimes twice a day. On the weekends I didn't, draw a sober breath, and it's a miracle that I don't drink. I mean, it's a miracle. My brother paid me $300 once not to drink for a month, and at the 29th day he goes, I'll give you another $300 not to drink next month. I was like, forget it. I don't want your money. I want to drink. And I was broke. I mean, I really needed the money. And, so not money, not boyfriend, not, any situation, nothing made me stop drinking till I came into AA, and I was so desperate, and I was so miserable and lonely on the inside, It's like, I'm the type of person, I can look at people and say, well, they're happy, they look happy, look at them, they're clean, they're happy, everything's perfect, they're rich, they drive a nice car, so they're perfect. And I compare the way that I feel to the way that other people look. And I've learned in AA that, it's not about how people look, it's about who people are on the inside. And I have really changed a lot on the inside. I'm getting older, so I'm sure I'm changing on the outside as well. But my husband tells me that all the time. But he's going to be 30 this year. How exciting. And so, it's so funny. I mean, AA, there's not a lot of things that I trust. I really like what the first speaker said about the friends, the caliber of the friendships in here. I mean, I love my friend Andy so much. It could just make me cry. And, I think my whole life I was searching to be loved, to love people, but, really to be understood. And it wouldn't matter if I sold flowers, or if I was a producer, or if, I was in the circus, or, Steven Spielberg. I just wanted people to love me and care about me for who I was, and in Alcoholics Anonymous, that is what has happened to me, is that I realized that people, they want the best for me, they want me to succeed. If I can find a career and build it for myself, that's great, and if I can't, then I can learn to be a worker amongst workers and pull my weight and do what's right, by people, and just try to live a decent life and try to be a good daughter and a good, wife. And my husband and I are trying to have a baby, so, hopefully be a good mother. But what's really interesting, one of the things, I've worked the steps, and one of the things that happened for me is that I was given direction to eat breakfast with my mom once a week, to spend an hour a week with my mother, because I would see my mom. She lives in California, and I would see her, and every time I'd see her, the second I'd see her, she'd go, "When am I going to see you again?" I'm like, "Mom, I just got here," And I just felt so suffocated, and I didn't respect my mom. And I actually, I don't know, it was like a love-hate thing. Like on that, I thought I hated her. I'm sure that I didn't, but I just felt like I hated her. She was always really goobery and touching me and kissing me and touching my hair, and it just made me insane. And I remember telling Charlotte, Clancy's wife, it makes my skin crawl, And Charlotte said to me, "That's your mother. That's mother's love. She loves you. That's how she's showing you she loves you." I said, "I can't stand it." And she said to me, "Well, you better learn how to stand it, because that's what love is," And she said, "There's a lot of people that never had their mother's love. There's a lot of people that would kill for that, and you have to learn how to appreciate it." And it just, it's such a miracle. I mean, I've been having breakfast with my mom every Friday for, I don't know, 3 years at least, and my relationship with my mother has completely and totally changed. When I first went there for breakfast, I would look at my watch. Oh my God, 50 minutes, I can't take it. Because I would just listen. I thought she was insane, and I really feared that I was going to be just like her, and then I'd leave, and I'd be all like, "Oh my God, she is crazy." And then I'd think, "I'm crazy." And then as the time went on, Clancy said to me, "Do you really think, can you afford to spend an hour a week with your mom? Is it really asking too much of you?" Because I didn't want to do it, And I said, "Well, I guess not." And he totally guilted me into it. And so, and I did it. And the miracle is today, I go over there, I spend an hour and a half with her. We have the greatest time. I love her. She's a good friend to me. She's a mom to me. She still can drive me crazy, but I totally appreciate the fact that she loves me. I can accept that, and I can give her back love, and she can depend on me, and that's all I ever wanted. I just wanted a mom. I just wanted to have a nice relationship with my mom, and I have that today, and that's totally a result of taking sponsor direction and just being willing to do what my sponsor told me and not fight him on it. And basically, because Clancy is who he is, it's kind of hard to fight him on things. I mean, I wanted to go to graduate school. He didn't want me to go, and I wanted to go anyway, and I just basically said, I'm going, and you can either support me in going or you can drop me, but I want to go. And I was really stubborn about it. And he said, "Look," he said, "the only reason I don't want you to go is because I don't want you to drink. I'm not thinking about your education. I'm thinking about your life. I know a lot of people that go to graduate school or go back to school when they're too young in sobriety, and they drink. It's too much pressure. They can't take it. Do you think you'll be able to take it? Do you think you're going to drink or stay sober?" I'm like, "Well, I'll do whatever whatever it takes to stay sober." And he made me do an inventory, and he made me go to meetings every morning, and I had to spend the whole weekend, at the yard, at the Saturday night meeting, doing functions with the Pacific group all weekend to get me rejuvenated to go through my school, and and I graduated, and I have my master's degree, and it's really amazing. I'm in a tremendous amount of debt as a result of that. So I'm totally stressed out because I owe so much money to the government. He's like, "See, I told you shouldn't have gone." It's like I didn't feel like drinking then, but I sure feel like drinking now. And, too late now. I was thinking, it's really funny, I was thinking to myself, really and truly, the only reason I don't drink now is because the only reason I came to AA is because drinking stopped working for me. And I have to remember that. I came here because it stopped working for me. I couldn't get high anymore. I thought there was something wrong. I thought everyone was watering down my booze, and that wasn't what it was at all. I bought bottles of champagne in the store, would drink 3 bottles of champagne and not get high, and thought, what is wrong with this champagne? And, it wasn't until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous that I realized that's alcoholism. You can't stay sober, you can't get drunk, and you're just in this horrible limbo, and it's miserable, and it was a miserable existence, and I was like that for, oh my God, I must have been like that for the last 4 years of my drinking, deluding myself, just doing more and more drugs. And there's been so many great things that have happened to me. I've always been on this search for God. God was always something that when I came into AA and heard people talk about God, I was like, forget it, I'm out of here. This is like some sort of religious thing. And people were like, no, you can have your own concept of God. My concept of God is like nothing. I don't have a concept of God. And so they're like, well, just, it could be anything. I'm like, well, like what? And like whatever you want it to be. And I've really struggled with that. I mean, I think that for me, that what has kept me sober and what has helped me in sobriety has been activity, it's been action, it's been taking direction and doing things when I didn't believe that they, would change my life. And that has really, really helped me. But when it comes really to like a God of my own understanding, I totally draw a blank. I'm like, I feel like, there is no God. I feel like everybody has a God but me, and I just borrow people's gods here and there. Like I'll borrow Andy's God. I'll believe that Andy believes, but I don't really believe. Or, Clancy always tells me, it's okay, you can just pretend, I'm your God. And so, and that worked for a little while, but until he yelled at me. No. And so the thing that has been really interesting for me recently is that, I don't know, a month ago my cat ran away, and I had these 3 cats. I'm just going to end on this. I had these 3 cats, and I have these 3 cats. I've had them for 7.5 years, and I love them, they're cute. And they don't go outside. They've never been outside, but they're not declawed or anything, but I just never lived in a place where they could go out. And so I have these 3 cats, and one day the painters came to paint my apartment, the outside of the apartment, but I didn't know they were coming to paint the outside of the apartment. And the cat boxes are on the patio, and it's an outdoor patio on the 2nd floor. And, unless the cat like dive bombs off the patio, which it hasn't in 2 years, I figure, it's safe to let him go out in the patio. So I come home, and one of the cats are gone. And what's really weird is I didn't notice that one of the cats were missing until probably 2 days later, which really made me crazy because I'm never home. I'm either in AA or I don't know. I'm with AA people. I'm at an AA meeting. I'm thinking about AA. I'm reading the book. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm never in my house except to sleep. And so, I write sometimes in the morning, and I was writing, and I realized, like, my cat usually gets up and bites my pencil. I'm like, where is that cat? And looking, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, I haven't seen this cat since Saturday night. And I went to the Saturday night meeting. I went to the softball tournament. Then my husband's secretary of a Sunday night meeting. We didn't get home till really late. Went to bed, woke up Monday morning, boom, the cat's not there. And then I remember there was a ladder up on the porch. Oh my God, that cat went down the ladder and is outside. I cannot believe it. It's been outside for 2 days. So we post up all these posters. We walk around. I'm crying. I cannot stop crying. I cannot get a grip on myself. I call Clancy, oh, my cat. He's like, okay, just go look for it and then go to work. And, I was just like, I was so crazy. And so we looked for a week every night after work. We look, posted a reward. We called up this, I was going to call it psychic, but I couldn't stoop to that. But, and because I don't believe in psychics, obviously, and I don't believe in God. Why would I believe in a person that could tell the future? So we called this neighborhood kitty finder place, and they're supposed to have this directory that calls everybody in the neighborhood to find your cat. So to make a really long story short, the cat was gone for 20 days. And I really, I just thought, okay, I haven't been able to have a baby. Now my cat's gone, my life's over, and so I just, I figured the cat was either dead or whatever, and I was really distraught, but I was kind of getting used to just having the 2 cats. And then my husband calls me at work and says the next door neighbors found the cat. So I get home, I leave work, and I see my cat. She's totally emaciated. She's jaundiced. She's limping. her bones are sticking through her skin. She's all screwed up. I take her in the house. I'm like, oh my God, you poor thing. I'm kissing her and everything. She looks like she's dying. She's nothing, no light in her eyes. And So I called the vet. He's like, just see if she eats or whatever. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't go to the bathroom. 24 hours went by. I took her to the vet. He goes, basically your animal's dying, but we'll put her on an IV. So she was in the hospital for 4 days. And her kidneys were bad. She had diabetes. Her liver stopped working. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And I could not stop crying. So I came home. I was totally distraught after I brought her to the hospital. I called up Andy. I said, I want to kill myself. I can't take it. I can't take the way I feel. These feelings are too intense. It was like I felt like a bad mother. I felt like a moron that I didn't bring the cat in immediately and that I let it, sit and die in my room for, 24 hours. And I didn't care about the money or anything, but, I've been having a really hard time at my job. Just everything. It was like I just was on the phone. I was just bawling my eyes out, going, I just hate myself. And I had never gotten to the point where I've hated my husband, but that's because I hated him when I was dating. So now that we're married, I love him. But I just hated everything, and I just kept telling her, like, everything sucks. I'm so powerless. I can't stand it. It's just making me crazy. No wonder I drank. I just can't stand to feel like this, And she kept saying, oh, it's okay, sweetheart. I understand. And it just really helped me. I hung up the phone. I thought, thank God that I learned when I was new to make 3 phone calls a day, which I still do, because I really wanted to kill myself. I wanted to just throw myself off the balcony, and my husband wasn't home. And I got the cat, I picked her up, and I have her on an IV in my house. I'm like sticking her with the needle and putting fluids in her, and she seems to be getting better, And I was looking at her, last night I was sitting at the table, and she came out she's been in the closet for like 2.5 days, and I try to force feed her and stuff, and I just keep thinking she's gonna die, And I was sitting in my living room, and she came out of the closet, and she just like walked out into the living room and looked right at me and just meowed like, Mama, And so I'm like, what are you doing, And so she came over and she jumped on, my friend's lap, and she sat on her lap for a few minutes, and she got on the table, and she sat on the table, and she won't eat, her liver's gone. She won't eat. So I figured, she seems relaxed. I got a plate of food. I put it on the table. She started eating it. And for the first time in my entire sobriety, I felt like maybe there is a God. Like I felt like that was a miracle. Like I actually had witnessed a miracle. And for the very first time, I felt like, maybe there's hope. Maybe like this little kitty wants to live so bad, and needs me so bad. And maybe I may be think that I'm a total failure in every area of my life, but I'm a total winner with this little kitty because I have loved her the same way that I've loved people in AA, and I've treated her the same way that I would have treated anybody that was sick and dying, And I just, if I haven't said anything tonight, all I can tell you is that this is the best life I've ever had. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I just want to thank all of you for listening to me.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious. Do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.